Hey everybody, how's it going? It's your favorite truck driver in the whole wide world, or ex-truck driver, whatever you want to say. It's Bitcoin Ben here with Bix Weir on my channel, and I'm on his channel, so it all works out in the wash. What's going on, Bix?
I'm doing well. I'm knee deep in getting back into the swing of things, and there's just so much one to catch up on, and number two going on right now. It's insane. It's insane, dude. You're
It's
so much closer to the screen. Here, hold on. You gotta look up my nose like they look up your nose. There we go.
how's it look now?
You're so good looking. The closer you get, the better off you are.
Yeah, and if you get really close, I look really good because then you can't really see any of my features.
Just those new pearly whites.
That's right. It's oh, let's jump right in here. The derivatives, and the whole. There's so much going on. This may be an hour. I don't know how long we'll go, but it's the announcement of the appointment of Kel, Kelly Loeffler
Mm-hmm.
uh, to the U.S. Senate. I have mixed feelings on this because although she she's pro-Trump, I know that. Uh, I've I've read some of her quotes. I've looked into some of her history. She's very pro-Constitution. She's very pro-freedom off of her quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Off of, but yet the project she's launching back is it does have issues. You have actually pointed out several of them. The futures, derivatives, and it's pro and con. It's like, is she going to be good for the country but bad for cryptos, or good for cryptos and bad for the country?
It to me, her appointment, um, she's coming from. I mean, she was put in her position by her husband, and her husband runs ICE, which is the it is the largest tool of market manipulation on planet Earth. ICE, the exchanges, they own the COMEX, they own the New York Stock Exchange, they own all the foreign exchanges. They own back, and they are a derivative player. That's all they deal in. Until you pull it off, it's just like the exchanges. Until you pull it off, it's a derivative thing. And so having her there, to me, tells me that she's part of the deep state criminal banking cabal, and that's kind of why Trump was really pushing for the other guy to be put in that place. Trump did not want her there. And that tells me that the good guys behind Trump are saying, no, this is not good for the country. It might be good for cryptos now, because there's the crypto cabal, as I call them, the bad guys of crypto. Or, there's good guys and bad guys fighting for crypto. The bad guys want to control it all, and the good guys want to, give it to humanity to use as a form of money. So I definitely think she's on at least the bad guys of the crypto world, which is like the Bitfinexes and the Tether crowd. But knowing that she comes from the criminal exchanges, yeah, I don't even know what this does to her current position as CEO of BAC. Is she stepping down?
I would have to say so, uh, because as a senator, that's a full-time gig. That's not like, hey, I go in to the office once a week.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and now I do want to address something with you, and this is where I think I'm actually coming from. Is I look at derivatives a little bit different than you do, because everything is a derivative. Litecoin is a derivative.
Uh,
Hang on a second.
okay. Here we go. Hang on.
Litecoin is a derivative representation of labor and value, because the only true representation of labor is labor, and the only true representation, or where value originates, is at the individual. If you value silver, you know, Mr. Bix Weir, the value of silver actually comes from your want of it. It has no other value than what humans value it as.
So that's everything.
Right. That's how everything is actually a derivative of human want. It's it. This is micro economics. It's without humans, nothing has value, because there's no humans to value it. So Litecoin is a derivative of human want or human demand.
But you can say that human want and demand is a derivative of the soul. Of
Yeah.
you can keep going
Oh,
back.
we can go into religions. Yeah. It's what I'm saying is that what you and I want is, we want an honest uh, derivative of our labor. We want an honest derivative of our want, and an honest derivative is Litecoin, because it's limited supply. It cannot be printed out of thin air. It cannot be devalued in a printing sense. And we want everything else in the world to be honestly represented in the derivative shape it takes. Oh, if right, outside of true cryptocurrencies like Litecoin and Bitcoin, where is the Litecoin transaction is the product. That is the product that Litecoin produces, is the transaction and the record of the transaction. That's what gives it value to us, because it's honest, it's in the blockchain, and you can't change it. You can't alter it. You can freely trade it. That's why we value it. Where, let's say that that there's a person who grows apples, and every apple is represented by one coin. All right, hypothetically, this is an example. And he sells those apples to a place in China. Well, the representation of account of that apple will always have a trust in human factor, where creating the token, you have to trust that there is a one-to-one apple with it, right? Well, what I'm saying with what they're doing, or what they're trying to do, and this is not going to be easy. In fact, it's almost impossible with the current uh, rehypothecation.
We know that word.
Rehypothecation.
Ooh, nice job.
Yeah, thanks. Of ownership of the commodity. They're trying to tokenize the ownership of these derivatives, but the problem is there so many of them are rehypothecated, which means several people own them, quote unquote, own them, that you can't do it. You can't say, okay, well, this future will now be represented by this coin. Well, who owns this coin if there's 12 people that own this futures contract? You know, that's where they're going to run into issues. What I want in the future is as honest of a derivatives ecosystem as possible. That and that includes everything basically being represented in a token of some sort, but anything outside of a true mineable cryptocurrency will have to have a human entering information in, and that's where the weakness will be the trust factor. You see what I'm saying?
I do kind of. Although I would rephrase what a financial derivative is versus just a derivative as a term. A financial derivative would be a contract based on some other pure asset, or even another derivative contract or another derivative. But it is a derivative in the financial sense, is an agreement between two or more people to transact some kind of an arrangement, you know, either a future or an option, or it could be anything. But in the case of a real asset versus a financial asset versus a financial derivative, a financial asset should and does have the ability to stand alone. And it doesn't require third party. It doesn't require anything other than that financial asset being present, being there, being available. So, for example, gold and silver. You have gold that used to be traded in the old days. You'd walk into a bank and they had pieces of paper or money or whatever you wanted, and you could trade it. Or you go to an exchange where they actually had the physical gold and physical silver, and it was traded for dollars or won or pigs or cattle or whatever was happening. Those were real transactions where real assets were being traded between each other. And that's what the beginnings of an exchange was. Now, it wasn't very efficient, obviously, if you're going to have to haul in a whole bunch of silver every day to, especially if you're a market maker, to make those trades. So it's kind of like the beginning of fiat money, where the goldsmiths back in the day would give you a certificate of deposit when you deposit the gold with the goldsmith, because they had the vaults and nobody else had vaults back then. So, and then the certificates were so sound because they trusted that they had all this gold. The goldsmiths started printing more certificates than they had gold. That same thing's going on with fiat money today, since we left the gold standard. Now, when you get into the derivative side of it, we have assets like silver, gold, oil, and Litecoin, for example. Those would be a financial asset because there's no third party. You don't have to rely on a third party or anything like that for that asset to be in your possession. Now, in order to facilitate trading, they create derivatives, because we think it's normal for millions of trades to go on every day. We call it liquidity, so that when you see a price, you know that you can jump into that market and get that price because there's so many other buyers and sellers. Well, that's where we ran into the problem. All liquidity is not the same. These are not, there wasn't, 60 million Litecoin traded yesterday. That's a derivative that's traded. And that's the problem, is that it is there's no limit on the amount of derivatives you can create to enter the market. And we're seeing that right now with the volumes on the exchanges. Now, I get that some of these are just phantom volumes. I get that. But some of them, a lot of them, especially with the lower profile exchanges, it's more than phantom volume. They have customers with Litecoin in their account that they don't hold the Litecoin. And they have no hope of holding the Litecoin. And as long as everybody doesn't pull their money out their Litecoin out at the same time, they're fine. But what it does, it creates phantom liquidity. So that it's not really, and then what happens there, the problem with phantom liquidity, which is liquidity that isn't really connected to a specific asset. The problem with that is you got people who are intent on rigging the price up, down, or sideways. Because every time the price gets rigged, the rigger has a desire for that price to go up or down or wherever they want to go. So they either make more money or control the system. So with the introduction of derivatives that are not Litecoin, not silver, not anything related to that asset other than a third-party promise or a third-party contract, that's where we get into the problem, because they found out, the banks especially, that we license into existence. We allow them to create money out of thin air, we the people, because we can pull that Federal Reserve statute out with the signing of the pen.
God, I wish they would.
I think at some point they would. But because they are able to create money and create derivatives, and the deregulation of derivatives in the 90s by Greenspan and Summers and Robert Rubin, because they can create unlimited amounts of derivatives, they can distort the true fair market value of any asset that is traded on these derivative exchanges. That's my problem, and that's what I've seen with the creation of the COMEX in the early 1970s when we went off the gold standard. They said, oh my God, we're going off the gold standard. Every time this has happened, the price of gold went through the roof and the fiat money that was left over crashed. Well, this time they invented computer programs to rig the markets in the 1970s. Then they invented the COMEX, which is a futures and options trading platform. And they invented the CFTC to run cover for all the criminality that had to go on within the banks. So sometimes the banks are running for their own books. Sometimes they're rigging for their own books. Sometimes they're rigging for the U.S. government. Sometimes they're rigging for the Federal Reserve. It all depends on, what's the situation of the time. And as we saw with Chris Giancarlo and Donald Trump and Steve Mnuchin and Gary Cohn, they decided to rig the Bitcoin market in 2017 and make it crash in December. All throughout 2018, that was them. Now, what did they do to do it? One, they instituted or allowed the implementation of the CME, which is not a big deal, but they did other things. They got in touch with the trustee of the Mt. Gox bankruptcy and said, hey, you're going to sell Bitcoin at these stages. When we tell you to sell Bitcoin, you're going to sell massive amounts of Bitcoin into the market because we got to bring this price down. They also sold Bitcoin that they had mined. There was all kinds, they put a lot of disinformation out in the media. So it wasn't just one thing that they did. It was a government effort to at least slow down. They can't stop Bitcoin, but they were able to slow down and financially destroy a lot of people in the process. So
Yeah.
that's my take is
No,
I just don't want this stuff. But you're right. In a free market, anything can happen. But
you're right as rain with everything that you said. I have no issue with everything you just said. It's right on. And what we're looking for, what you and I are looking for, is we, in a global market, derivatives are necessary. You cannot live in a global supply chain market without derivatives of ownership of commodities, because it's how they trade.
But that trading only really started in the 1970s. To say that is required for the future, that basically it screws us for the rest of our lives and our kids' lives and their kids' lives,
Well,
because if we have to rely on derivatives to trade real assets because we want the liquidity, then we are in deep trouble, more trouble. That this is how we got in this problem today, is
right.
thinking that these things actually
But
represent value.
what I'm asking is how would a supplier of corn sell his or her product past the grain bin down the road? How would they offer their product into the market without going on to a derivatives exchange and say, I have 100 bushels of corn. What will you give for this 100 bushels of corn? And what I'm saying is that everything you just explained with early gold and the bankers and issuing notes and all that, that system that we're living in now needs to be replaced with the most accurate accounting mechanism ever created, and that's blockchain.
I
Now,
agree. That I
now,
agree with.
now, will that blockchain actually be 100% absolute honest?
It has to be. The
It
blockchain
can't be.
is the blockchain is it's the things that are added to the blockchain that are.
Yes, that's where cryptocurrencies like Litecoin and Bitcoin are incorruptible, because the only thing you can inject into them is a transaction. That's it.
Mhm.
And however, what I'm saying is that the good guys on our side, on the good guys in cryptos, it's why they haven't completely crashed the price, because they see the answer, the most honest answer for our future trade globally is blockchain.
Mhm.
Now, the problem is they've got this old crooked system that has to either collapse or transition. Everybody in Washington, I don't care who you ask, would much rather have a transition than a collapse. Now, how they do that, nobody knows yet, because with the rehypothecation, there's no accuracy in the existing accounting. There's corruption. So they're trying to take something that's corrupt and make all of the parties whole financially to transition into the most honest representation of derivatives, blockchaining, into the future. That's what they're working towards. Now,
But what would that do? That would mean we have the most debt we've ever had. It would mean that the vast majority of the wealth is held by a tiny amount of people. It just has transitioned to the blockchain. That doesn't solve any of the problems. That's why it won't be able to be
well,
done.
it's
I know they'd
it's
love to do it, but it can't be done.
well, it there's a way to do it, but it is literally printing up money. And this is where I think Trump's actually going with this. I think that Trump and his friends in the Federal Reserves, this is the tightrope they're walking. They're going to try and absorb as much of the American linked derivatives into the Federal Reserve as possible.
So they're
they're
not doing a
making,
good job. They have
well,
barely done anything.
it has, or they think it has to be a gradual process. And what what they're going to do, or what they're trying to do, is bring in these toxic assets, which is all these friggin' rehypothecated derivatives and all that. Bring them into the Federal Reserve, issue out money to the clearinghouses and the banks, enough money to make the participants in the derivatives whole, where then the Federal Reserve, now mind you, this is, I don't know how the hell this is going to work.
And when would it start?
It's already started.
It hasn't started, unless they're not telling anybody.
What do you think the overnight assets are that they're putting up?
I can tell you exactly what the overnight derivative situation is all about.
Right.
It's not about, if they were looking to do that, they're going to have to buy the assets, which they started a little, but not much. The vast majority is the overnight repo market, because, and that's just overnight. They're not buying it, and the banks have to give that money back the next day on the overnight repos.
But why do the banks need the money?
Because they won't lend to each other in the overnight markets anymore, because they don't trust each other.
It's a conundrum.
But let me just one more thing on the repos. The reality of what's going on the repo side, it was the cheapest money that banks could get, was the overnight money, because it's shorter term. The risk is somebody going under is very low, and then all of a sudden that froze up, because banks like JP Morgan and potentially Morgan Stanley might have gone belly up at some point in time in the past couple months. That's when you got the interest rates jumping to 10% on overnight repo, which is, it's not necessarily that it was 10%, it's an annualized 10%, but it was the fact that there was a problem, because that's supposed to be the cheapest money ever. Now, when you look at what they're doing with trying to, if what you say is true, that they're trying to take the derivatives and bring them into the Fed, and all the toxic ones into the Fed, at least for the US people, if that was true, I can't imagine a worse job, because Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, that by themselves in the first quarter added 10 trillion in derivatives. So it's a thing where they're bailing out the banks on an overnight, and they're buying even less. Maybe what is it? So far, I think they've bought like 70 or 80 billion in debt, which is what you're talking about, where they give the bank the money for good and they take in the toxic asset. So Jamie Dimon in the first quarter adds 10 trillion, and the Fed bails out 60 or 70 billion. That ain't gonna fix any problem anytime soon. Hang on. I think you hit mute.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think that part of this is what's her name? The Austin Fitz.
Catherine Austin Fitz.
Right. The 21 trillion and more. There's more. That's just all they've found so far. I think that is actually part of what I'm talking about, where we're actually going off of a website every night showing us what they're doing. I think there's a whole nother friggin' book out there that is flooding money, and that's where what I'm actually talking about is going on. They're not talking about what they're really doing, and that's where this money that her and the professor found, that's where part of that went. I think there's a lot more than that, and
it's infinity money.
Right, and And I think that's what they've actually been doing for
So
quite some time now.
I agree, and that gets me to why one of the main reasons why I think they're looking to take down the system is that and not bail out the banksters. Besides the Road to Ruta documents that I've studied and analyzed, the fact that they are printing money behind the scenes and not telling anybody means they could easily hide all the troubles that are going on right now. But the fact is, they are not hiding it. As a matter of fact, they're doing exactly the opposite. Look at what they're doing to Deutsche Bank, and they're crawling up their rectum again about the Estonia bank. Look at what they're doing to J.P. Morgan and the necessary manipulation of gold and silver. You got 6 J.P. Morgan traders who are being brought up on RICO charges, racketeering charges. I mean, the concept of a racketeering charge, basically it takes all the rules that if you do something bad and it magnifies them. For example, if JP Morgan really has 1 billion ounces of silver, like Ted Butler asserts, when I believe he's correct, then they are going to, if they get found guilty of racketeering, and the DOJ is right now calling them Bank A. They won't even say it's JP Morgan, even though the 6 traders are employees of JP Morgan. But that will mean JP Morgan will owe 3 billion ounces of silver, up to 3 billion ounces, because the racketeering, you get 3 times the amount you stole. And not only that, it's jail time for the managers and their managers, anybody who knew about it. So you're looking at jail time for not just these 6 traders, but for Blythe Masters, Jamie Dimon, and the board of directors at JP Morgan, which they all should be in jail anyway. I mean, we all know that. Who was Bernie Madoff's only banker? It was JP Morgan, approved by the board.
Yep. What I think's actually going on is I think that Trump and the the people arresting these people and charging these people, they're trying to, and if you look at the CEOs that are resigning and you look at all the leadership of
Google,
these
the 2
major,
Google guys. Was
right,
it Google or YouTube?
I think it was Google, uh, all these people leaving top positions. See, Trump doesn't want to destroy Google. Trump wants to destroy who's controlling Google. Trump doesn't want to destroy the banks. Trump wants to destroy the people controlling the banks. It's whenever you have a house on a neighborhood that has a bunch of drug dealers in it, you don't burn down the fucking house. You know, you get the drug dealers out of it. You repair the house, then you resell it, or you bring in a good family. And
But when there's $1 quadrillion of derivatives written on that one house, you got a bigger problem.
yeah, but what if over the last year and a half or 2 years that they've actually been dragging in a lot of these derivatives and actually cashing them out, putting the derivatives onto the Federal Reserve second book.
Yeah, but I mean, we have no proof of that,
Well, we have no proof of any of this.
I have proof of the opposite. I have from the Road to Ruta documents. It's the Fed wanting to destroy the system, wanting to get rid of the bad guys, as they call them in the Ruta comics. I would argue
we don't really have proof of any of this. We are pointing at websites that have words on them, but we are not witnessing actions implemented that are showing us what's good. We're reading someone else's tale,
interpreting it, yeah,
of what they say is going on.
Yeah,
it's why, and it's why the 21 trillion was such a big deal. and why the federal government said, well, we're not going to talk about that. It's now national security. Well, it's we know so little that I think we really don't know jack shit.
That's a fact, but we have fun talking about
Oh, we do. That's the only reason we have shows.
it.
it's
Well, I can imagine the comments on that one. We don't know jack shit. It's true. But
it's
the thing about you and the thing about me on our channels, we talk to people about how we came to these decisions, how we came to our opinions. You know, we're not just making it up out of the blue sky. There's work and behind the scenes stuff that we do and that we've experienced over all our years looking at this stuff that it makes the most sense to you or to me, and I think it's really informative and helpful for people to listen to discussions like this where we're looking at all angles that we can, and then we're looking at the evidence like the DOJ, you know, filing RICO charges and Trump's. You know, I'm really excited about all the Horowitz report and the Inspector General report. All these reports that are coming out that are going to start to reveal just how criminal our government is, our banking system is. I think those are going to be when it is revealed that Jamie Dimon and friends are literally running a RICO operation, racketeering.
they have been.
Absolutely.
And what's crazy, what's really going to blow people's mind is how it's actually been a generational thing.
Oh yeah.
That the bloodlines of these people, it's their dads, it's their grandfathers. Look at the original Bush. You know, that guy was a Nazi collaborator, and he was actually convicted in a court of law as a
Absolutely.
Nazi collaborator.
Prescott
And
Bush. And
yep,
but their real name wasn't it Schiff or something like that?
yeah, they're actually uh, they're actually Jewish.
Yeah. So I mean, we know it because we've been diving into it for so long.
Yeah.
But the rest of the world who only watches, you know, MSNBC and CNN and Fox News, they're kind of like, you know, they got their camps, and you know, I fear that the United States will not survive this intact. Um, and it might not be a bad thing to split up the country, and but I hope that if we do split up the country, in I hope that all truth is revealed before, so that we can make an informed decision on what happened and why it's probably a good idea to make certain areas of the country. You know, I don't see how we can have another president.
Well, I agree with you, and there's actually historical precedence for this. Right before the Civil War, uh, there was a president of the United States, and then there was a president of the Confederation. And basically, how that all happened was there was an election, and the South did not recognize the election. So they had another election, and they elected their own president.
Yeah, I
And
see something like that happening.
yeah, and now legally, I use that. You know,
Yeah,
according to law, the only state that can actually pull out is Texas, because they were smart and left that in the agreement. Like, look, anytime y'all get stupid, we're out.
right.
Um, everything, every other state signed on to the the contract after the Civil War to reunite the country, and this is where you can go down several slippery rabbit holes,
All right.
to reunite the country after the bankruptcy of each of the entities.
Mm-hmm.
So once each of them went bankrupt, they wrote a new contract, and that contract is what created the corporation known as the United
United States of
States of
America
America.
Corporation. Yeah.
So now here, now just saying that little paragraph, that's um, that's going to bring out the sovereign citizens,
Oh, I know.
movement.
But here's the other thing, and something I've talked about quite a bit in talking with Dick Allgaier and his guy Michael, who's
I
trying to explain that we, being born on this planet, we are subject to certain uh, rules and laws that have been in place for 2,000 years, whatever the story is. I truthfully believe I am a sovereign citizen. I didn't sign up for any of these laws that we are living under, and I think when this all falls apart and we understand that the very people, the judges and the lawmakers, which is our congressmen, are the true criminals, I don't know what law will stand at all. And I mean, I wasn't born into these laws. I didn't agree to these laws. Some people say, "Oh, you signed your birth certificate, or you signed your
your
driver's license."
driver's license, yeah.
You know what I say to that? Bullshit. Laws can only be enforced if you've got the military power behind it. And my country, the United States of America, according to our Constitution, we're free people, and we should be free people. And even if you don't believe in the Constitution, if you believe in the individual's right to be free and to sign any agreement you want. But if I didn't sign an agreement, I didn't come down here to be subject to all these idiotic criminal rules to have our overlords, look after us. So I'll be on that camp fighting for the freedom and the individual sovereignty of
He
the individual.
it and this this is where I will plant my flag and my feet proudly. If it was up to me, we would roll the governance model of the U.S. all the way back to the Magna Carta. That's how far I would take it back, where the argument of the Magna Carta was basically the argument that you have a soul, and that your soul is you. You have sovereignty, which is ownership of soul. That's what sovereignty means. It means ownership of soul. And I would roll it all the way back to there, where uh, you own your soul. Therefore, your soul resides in your body, and that your body is actually born with the rights that God has granted your soul, and that is free will, and that no man, no government entity, nothing on this earth has any influence over your soul. You have sovereignty. And if we get back to that, we're good. But that's going to be a long while, because you have to convince a whole lot of people that their freedom is worth, or your freedom is worth just as much as theirs. And there lies the argument of everyone loves their freedom. It's just that other guy's freedom that's the problem,
Mhm.
you know. And because inside of a system of freedom, you have conflict. And as technology moves forward, and the ability to interact on a global scale, the level of conflict of the sovereigns, the people, is at an all-time high. I can argue with a guy over in Japan right now that 100 years ago I wouldn't even known he existed. You know, so as we move technologically, we have to implement systems like blockchain to mathematically calculate trust, where in or this world's going to hell in a handbasket, because anything that relies solely on the trust of humans will become corrupt. It's just what happens. It's why they say absolute power, absolute corruption.
Yeah.
There,
Corrupts absolutely.
right, there you go. So now we have this technology that can represent ownership or represent value with a mathematical calculation that leaves out trust in our currencies with Litecoin and Bitcoin, but limits trust as to solely the input of the original information in all of our products and our commodities. So this is a transition from the old world that is riddled with lies, because humans lie, into a new system that is actually based on mathematical trust. And that's what we're in right now. And my friends, it is going to be a wild ride, but there's a lot of opportunities in it also. So have no fear, my friends.
The only thing you have to fear is fear itself.
Exactly. And have no fear, because
It's gonna happen anyway.
yeah, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and whatever kills you is sending you to heaven, or at least to meet God. May not work out whether or not he gives you
Thumbs up
thumbs
or
up or
thumbs down.
thumbs down, but
Absolutely.
Hopefully you lived a good life.
Absolutely. Hey, I do have a question, and I know you're a big fan of Divi.
Yeah.
I still can't, if it, the things about Divi that I struggle with, it's calling itself a cryptocurrency, and yet it is pre-mined, a huge inflation factor, centralized. You know, they just bought a bank. I mean, how centralized can you be if the government wants to shut Divi down? Do that. Why are you so gung ho on Divi?
Because number one, the the structure for creating value is changing. The structure of implementing and rolling out a company is changing. And this is one of the structures that I saw coming a few years ago. It's just no one was doing it yet. And now Divi is using a structure to create a community-based model. And the community-based model has a structure that includes an early and mid and late inflation rate that entices adoption of the product or the company to originate at centralized and end at decentralized. Ethereum is basically a good representation of that, where the SEC said originally they were a security, but they have decentralized enough into a non-security. Well, Divi is basically that model, except with a a s- a s- a specific job they plan on doing. So Ethereum's the world computer. Divi is that model of creation of the company to eventually decentralize it, because they're the high inflation rate early allows price a, a super low price for a lot of accumulation of coins that then you uh, regular people like me can actually buy a node and run a node that we're Divi's almost got like 800 nodes right now. Well, the price is low, so the average person can run a node.
Is the
Well,
price low, or is it just massive amounts of coins out there?
it, it's
Both.
exactly the same thing. That is the actual mathematical calculation that keeps the price low.
So
You
why do you think the price is low?
Why do I think it's low
Yeah.
in
I mean,
relation?
I can create a coin with 100 trillion coins and the price would be low, or I can create a coin at the same price that has only 10 coins. I would say that would be low if it's only 10. But if you have
Because
trillions,
you want the early adoption to lead to the decentralized if Litecoin was actually proof of work, only rich people now could run a node.
right?
If you need 100,000 Litecoin in order to run a Litecoin node, do you got that kind of money? I don't. Well, if you're going off of a proof of work or proof of stake model of transactionary units holding up the network, then you have to keep your price low so that the early adopters can afford uh, enough of them to run an actual node. You
But
know,
isn't that in the I mean the protocol of the coin? I mean, you can make it anything to run a node. You could design the system so that you can run a node with 10 Divi, you know, instead of 100,000. I mean, to me,
yeah,
it gets to what Charlie Lee was saying when I interviewed him about the creation, and other people interviewed him about the creation of Litecoin. He said at the creation, he wanted it to be as fair as possible. So
that's a completely different model.
I get it, but the obviously those first guys who invented Divi own vast majority of the Divi right now, and they will
Yes.
be divvying it out, shall we say, over time. And I don't have a problem with, but I with that, but it as a cryptocurrency, if it's being used as a currency, the fairness factor when you relate Litecoin, how Litecoin was created, to something like Divi, how Divi was created, where the founders basically have all the Divi and will reap the massive rewards if it's ever adopted by a decent amount of people. You know, they'll be the gods of Divi.
Well, you could also say that with the early miners of like Litecoin.
Well, yeah, but this wasn't, this was pre-mined, so they created them for themselves in the beginning.
Yeah, as a part of the corporate economic structure. Yeah,
Right.
it's 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 really the intent of the actual team, and and this maybe is where it lies, is I've actually met the team. I've hung out with. I've known about the project for well over a year. I've only been talking about it for about a month to a month and a half. There's a reason why I've only been talking about it for a month to a month and a half, because like the CTO, he's a great guy named Nick. Uh, I actually met him about a year, almost a year and a quarter ago. And we hung out, we talked about the project, sounded great. I said, man, I'd love to hop on this as soon as you guys prove that you're not criminals.
Right. Yeah, I saw part of your interview, and it sounds fine. To me though, it's more like I would classify it as a token instead of a cryptocurrency. I see cryptocurrencies as what you used to say is, oh, it has to be mined.
Yeah, and yeah, Divi, to my definition, is not a cryptocurrency. It is a utility token and a project specific reward token.
Okay. So what would the use case be?
What would the use case be
For
of
all tokens? They need a use case.
yeah, right now it is to run the decentralized node uh, structure that's actually being built right now.
But that's not
All
a
right,
use case for the token.
but hang on a sec. All right, that's like asking me, well, you looks like you're building the foundation of the house, but what is the top floor going to be used for? You know,
Yep.
it's you have to look at a corporate structure in levels. You create on levels. So first, the use case, right? That's why I tell everybody, unless you plan on running a node, there's no reason to buy the coin. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they've proven so far is a really simple wallet to launch a masternode. That's what they've proven so far. Now they own part of a bank. And now they have 3 physical locations in Costa Rica that are handling transactions from America and Europe and Africa to the local economy in that area where those physical locations are at.
What does that mean to the local economy?
They have Divi offices. There's actually 3 of them. They're launching 5 more in like mid-January.
Okay.
And
So it's
what
not
those
people using Divi to go buy products and services.
it's a remittance company,
Yeah. To buy Divi.
and Litecoin and actual Bitcoin.
Okay.
Oh, it's uh, oh, their physical locations. What they do is they educate and interact with the local community on cryptocurrencies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And uh, they they're kind of a replacement for uh, what it called, like Western Union. But imagine if Western Union had classes or something on the creation of the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, hey, let me explain the currency that you're transacting in. You know, it's why I've chosen to actually get involved, because they're not only providing a service. They are providing education to these areas of the world that don't have like really reliable currencies and don't have any reliable banks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, they're it's it it's why it's the only project I've even looked at seriously, because of they're more in it for the people of the communities than, because if you look at their offices, they're they they're very welcoming. They communicate with the surrounding businesses. They're trying to implement Litecoin and like Bitcoin into these other actual local businesses where they can create an economy where if you have a woman who produces really nice, you know, uh, uh, I don't know, like blankets, where she can be paid in Litecoin, or she can be paid in actual Bitcoin. And their roadmap, and I've seen movement on this personally. They plan on launching a global Amazon-like platform that that will allow these underserved communities to offer products on this website, uh, and work with cryptocurrencies on the website where they can actually get paid in either Litecoin or Bitcoin, or if they choose, also Divi, whichever ones they choose. But Divi will also be like a reward token on that platform.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the levels in which they are building, each level is another use case. But it's why I've waited and watched is, all right, well, they said they're going to launch the world's first one-click masternode. Yeah, good luck with that. That's what I thought when I first heard the idea, was a one-click masternode, my ass.
And then they did it.
And then they did it. And then I talked with the CEO, and I talked with Nick. Now, the mindset of these people is so completely different. These guys, and that's why you should have a call, not a recording. Don't record anything. Have a call with the CEO of Divi. Just a call, nothing recorded. Just have a conversation with them. All right. They're implementing, and I can't announce the details yet because they haven't announced it, but they're implementing a way for even more financially underprivileged people to get involved with the project on a smaller level, because they want to be inclusive of every level that humans exist on. And they know the future. They know everything's going blockchain. Every everything's going blockchain. Just get ready for that. All right. They know it. But they, like me, like my mission is get as many truck drivers involved in cryptos as I possibly can before this really takes off, because I want the morality to grow of the people that I'm working with. And the way to do that is to give them more of a community voice. The way that you have a community voice is you have the capital to inject into other projects or other entities that share your values. It's 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 why, like me and my wife, why we give to charities. Damn, can I go one episode? Because I believe in the mission of that charity.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I want that to, if we want to replace the evil pluckers at the top, we have to financially push up the good people. That is what my goal is. And through this revolution, through this transition, the most amazing wealth transfer in human history, if we position good people in good places, as this transition goes, they'll gain wealth, which means they'll gain influence locally. And some of them, like Trace, as this goes, he's going to have so much money he's not going to know what to do with it.
No, I think he already does.
Right. Well, somebody with that type of money, with that libertarian view, let him put some of that money into politics. Let him run for an office. Let him do something
I couldn't
without
see
that
Trace.
money.
I couldn't see Trace wanting to do that.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the whole libertarian conflict. I don't want to tell people to do. So what? Why the hell am I joining government?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Okay. I mean, okay. I see what you're saying. It was a good analogy. The house and the we're they're building the infrastructure, and I personally I probably won't until
no, it's
someday down
okay.
the line, until it's proven and stuff like that. But
It's
but
it.
it
This is this is how I see it. All right, I see them as, and please, those of you not, Christian or religious, I see them as people I agree with ethically,
Mhm.
creating a company that I ethically agree with. It's 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 like helping the local church add on another wing, where you say, all right, I'll pay for the foundation, and then someone else comes along and goes, well, I'll cover the cost of the electric. You have to build the foundation. It's the heart of what goes on in the building that really matters.
Okay. That
So
was. I mean, yeah.
that's it.
I mean, that gives me an idea of where you're coming from, and yeah, I don't know these guys, and um,
Yeah.
I look at cryptocurrencies as something that is a scary venture to start with anyway, and if there's any way the government can stop it, they're going to do it. And but hey, we'll see what happens in the future. And
Yeah. It's it. I I I love you, Bix,
I
and
love you too.
you know it.
And don't forget Cliff High's famous saying. He's like, when the tide goes out, or tide comes in, all boats rise. And those who have, I mean, definitely they're building a business when cryptos aren't like booming and going crazy. So when they do, that'll be a big wind in their sail moving forward.
Yeah. It's it's something I've I've actually gotten behind, and this is why I love doing videos with you, because if you would have asked me these questions and I wouldn't have had an answer, then I would have had to question myself on, yeah, why do I? And that's why I love, dude. That's why I love you, Bix, because you're you're such a good friend of mine that you walk up and you poke me in the chest and go, Ben, 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 Ben. But I need that poke. We all need that
We all
poke.
do. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
group hug.
Group hug. I do need to get going soon. Why don't you talk a little about the Saturday event? It's kind of changed a little.
Yeah, this, okay, I'm going to try. Uh, this Saturday, I was going to do 12 hours for Toby, your son, who you lost to suicide. Uh, well, YouTube won't let me do a 12-hour live stream. So, and from what I've heard from a few other like bigger guys, not even in cryptos, just like larger YouTube channels, that if I do anything over 2 hours, that video will get flagged at YouTube, and they, with all of the uncertainty with YouTube right now, they basically said, Ben, I would do 2 hours, raise as much as you can, and then maybe do it again in a few weeks, or however. So this Saturday, I'm going to go from 11 until 1 Central Standard Time, and I'm going to do a fundraiser for your son's dance studio that he really cared about. And I would encourage everybody to jump on the live stream. If the only way you can actually donate is super chats, that's fine. I would prefer you send Litecoin or like Bitcoin or Ethereum, so that we don't lose any of the capital raised to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And there, we'll also have a GoFundMe page for the charity. You have that already created. I've had it under my videos for about a week now, I think, or a couple, maybe 3 or 4 days. And I just want to raise as much as I can, because I want to hit the 10,000 that you've actually set. And once again, thank everybody who has actually mailed me things to give away during the live stream. I have 20 ounces of silver that somebody sent me for giving away during the event. I have this here, which is like one gram of actual gold, and I'll be giving away this. I got a ton of, Z Bones is actually going to give me a ton of stuff to give away. So it's going to be a great time. I'm going to try not to cry as much
Yeah,
as,
good luck with that.
yeah,
Hey,
as
I want to thank you and Kelly and, oh my God, all the crypto friends and the Road to Ruta members and Bitcoin Ben followers. I could not have made it through all this. I'm still making it through, but I could not even come close without all the support and love and of friends and family, and the support from the crypto community and the silver community and the YouTube fan. Unbelievable, just phenomenal. And I want to thank everybody who has contributed. If you want to contribute, very top of roadtoruta.com is the link to the memorial page. He was an amazing kid, and I'm not gonna bend on you, but it's been very difficult. And I just want to thank everybody for reaching out, and your support and love is what gets me and my family through this. So thank you all, and Ben, thank you for doing this on Saturday. And let's hit that 10,000 mark and move forward.
Absolutely. All right. Well, there went my laptop. I just showed it out the laptop. So everybody, this Saturday from 11 until 1 Central Standard Time on my channel, please hop on, and I'm going to try and make it as pleasurable and humorous and smiles as possible, because he had an amazing life, and 99% of it he smiled through.
Yep, absolutely.
So
thank you, Ben.
no problem. Okay, well, let's end this on, I really appreciate everyone watching, and everyone have a great day. Love you, Bix, like
Love you
always,
too.
brother.
All right.
And everyone have a great day. Bye-bye, guys.